Good evening, everybody, and welcome to WANA Live, the official reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I am Damian Dressick, and I'm here with my co-host,
Christina Fasonic in Wheeling, West Virginia. How are you tonight, Damian?
I am fine, thank you.
Well, that's good. That's really good. I'm really excited that it's February already, and I'm hoping that as we get closer to spring, that it's February, right? Surprise. And I'm really hopeful that as we get closer to spring, that we'll get closer to everybody being vaccinated and being back together again. But until then, we have a new writer for everybody tonight. And I'm super excited about this. I say that every week because it's true. Right? Every writer that we have on, it's exciting.
Oh, no, we have been blessed with amazing writers giving of their time. We are so grateful.
Absolutely. So you want to hear about our writer tonight?
I would love to hear about our writer tonight.
So tonight, Dr. Todd Snyder will be reading for us. He is an associate professor of rhetoric and writing at Siena College in Albany, New York. He received a BA and an MA in English from Marshall University, and a Ph.D. in Rhetoric and Composition from my alma mater, Ohio University. Snyder is the author of The Rhetoric of Appalachian Identity and 12 Rounds in Lowe's Gym, Boxing and Manhood in Appalachia. His scholarly research draws from a variety of fields, including rhetoric and composition, community literacy studies, communication studies, cultural studies, and critical theory. He also teaches a course at Siena College in hip-hop studies and contributed a chapter to the Oxford Handbook of Hip-Hop Studies. He is the son of a West Virginia boxing trainer. And he's also intimately connected to his life experience, the theme of working class masculinity, serving as a primary focus for his writing projects. And I think everybody in our audience should agree that he's probably the most interesting writer we've had on in terms of subject matter. So are we ready to bring him on?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Christina, how you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Good evening.
You will be reading to us from your Bundini book, right?
That's correct. That's right.
Want to tell everybody a little bit about that book?
Yeah, tonight I'm going to read from my new book. It's the title of the book is Bundini, Don't Believe the Hype. It came out in late August of 2020, and it is the first biography of Muhammad Ali's trainer, Drew Bundini Brown. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with boxing, Bundini was sort of the poet laureate in Muhammad Ali's corner. He coined a lot of those famous rhymes that we know from Muhammad Ali. Of course, Bundini's most famous line is float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. So in some ways, Bundini was not only Muhammad Ali's trainer, but Muhammad Ali's ghostwriter or hype man, as we joke about in the book. So I'm going to be reading from that book today.
Awesome. I'm really excited about this.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
And I in a Sports Illustrated article a little bit about how they met and all that kind of stuff. So I can't wait to hear more. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Just real quick to set the book up for folks who maybe aren't familiar with boxing. Bundini Brown was not only one of the chief trainers for Muhammad Ali, but he also trained the great Sugar Ray Robinson. And this is the first biography of his life. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1987. But we were able to get with members of the Ali family and also members of the Brown family to get sort of the inside story on his life. One of my key interviews for the book was his son, Drew Brown III, who lived really an amazing life himself. He was a Navy fighter pilot, college basketball player, first-generation college student, which I have a soft spot for. So the passage I'm going to read today is from the beginning of the book. And Bundini is sort of this enigmatic, charismatic, mysterious character in boxing history that even though he was, in the forefront of the upper echelon of boxing, a lot of people didn't know much about him, where he came from. So the passage I'm going to read tonight is about me getting to meet his son, Drew Brown III, for the first time. And this isn't your traditional biography because Bundini isn't your traditional boxing trainer. So I'm going to read the opening to the book, just a couple pages.
Okay, we're going to disappear,
Talk about
and
this.
we'll come back when you finished up reading.
Sounds good. The reason I wanted to open with this is I wanted to sort of take readers on the journey with me. It was a wild ride getting to meet Bundini's son, and it began with my trip to Atlanta to meet him for the first time. So this is the opening lines to the book. The white Rolls Royce weaved out of the slow-moving airport traffic and came to a rolling stop. The suicide doors opened, providing a sneak peek of the interior. He was tall, thin, handsome, and gangly like his father. Drew Timothy Brown III, Drew Bundini Brown's son, smiled and brushed his right hand through his hair, briefly fingering the bald patch. We used to think Daddy's hair fell out because of those chemicals he put in it, back when the conch was a thing, Drew said to me, lifting the carry-on bag from my shoulder as if he were a chauffeur. Now we know it's genetic. Looks just like his, doesn't it? He added. I climbed into the luxury vehicle awkwardly. The car doors shut themselves. Drew's resemblance to his father was uncanny. I instantly noticed he was wearing his father's jewelry, the famous Star of David necklace, a gold watch, and a diamond-encrusted bracelet bearing the family name. Drew had grown his hair out for me, I suspected. This was his way of introducing me to his father. I didn't anticipate getting scooped up in the double R, I said, half joking, attempting to stave off the kind of silence that often lingers between strangers thrust into close proximity. After the Ali Frazier fight, my father bought a brand spanking new Fleetwood Brougham Cadillac. He named the car Black Beauty. Daddy named all of his cars. But this one was the bomb. Black with gray interior. It had psychedelic lighting in the rear passenger section. It had the disco package, they called it. The lights would go with the music. Daddy loved that car, Drew responded, suggesting my statement had triggered a memory. The white Rolls Royce exited Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and made its way on the I-85 South. Let me tell you a story about that car, Drew continued. Moments into our time together, we became old friends. Drew's enthusiasm for his own story was infectious. When I received my driver's license, I was looking for one of those Brady Bunch moments. So I asked my dad when he came to visit if I could drive Black Beauty, Drew continued. No, boy, you don't get to drive this car. You didn't work for this. You got to work hard. You got to do something great to drive a car like this. I'm not going to let you drive a car like this, driving around acting like you did something, Bundini scolded his son. Listening to Drew relive the memory, seated in the passenger side of his Rolls Royce, I was suddenly reminded of the fact that I was in the presence of Drew Timothy Brown III, not Bundini. I'd never been more upset in my life. I just wanted that Brady Bunch, father's knows best type of moment. Dad, can I borrow the car? That kind of thing. I would have just taken the car around the dang block, Drew said. Is this a painful memory for you? I asked, sensing my research was now officially underway. To this, Drew flashed a Cheshire grin. Fast forward a few years after I graduated college, when I was working in Las Vegas, I bought this beautiful red Cadillac. I remember picking Daddy up from the airport. He said, "Dang, son, this is nice. Let me drive it," Drew continued. I guessed the crescendo line of the parable before the words left his lips. In telling the Black Beauty story, Drew had given me my first lesson on Bundini. I told Daddy, "Hell no, this is my ride. You got to do something great to drive a car like this." And you wouldn't believe it. The biggest smile you've ever seen crossed Daddy's face, Drew said, chuckling as he delivered the punchline. I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me, but at the moment, it felt wonderful. Daddy was proud, and in the end, I was proud of myself. Daddy was absolutely right, Drew added. Drew Brown III has, without question, achieved greatness in his own life. He was a college basketball star, earning a full athletic scholarship to Southern University of New Orleans. After becoming the first member of his family to graduate from college, earning a degree in business with a minor in economics, Drew later joined the U.S. Navy, earning his Wings of Gold in 1983. Early into his career, Drew was assigned to the Attack Squadron 35, known as the Black Panthers, the oldest attack squadron in naval aviation history. Because the young pilot was known around the squadron for being tall, dark, and handsome, Drew stands about 6'5", he was given the call sign Dark Gable. At the time, Drew was the only black jet pilot flying the A-6 Intruder on the East Coast. This would be an illustrious naval career. He was awarded the Medal of Service by the U.S. United States Freedom Foundation and the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Male Achievement Award. After his career in the Navy, Drew became an airline pilot for FedEx, a career that would span 3 decades. While Drew spent much of his adult life above the clouds, it would be on the ground in front of junior high, high school, and college students that the former Navy pilot would make his biggest impact. In 1991, Drew Brown III published a best-selling book titled You Gotta Believe, which launched his career as a motivational speaker. After the book was released, Drew appeared on NBC's The Today Show, NBC Nightly News, CBS This Morning, and hundreds of local radio and television programs. His work would also be featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Fortune magazine. At the height of his popularity, Drew was interviewed by media luminaries such as Jane Pauley, Phil Donahue, and Connie Chung. When it came to rhetoric, the apple did not fall far from the tree. Drew is much like his father. He's a fast talker, and he's eloquent, his vocal presence commanding. Bundini's son is the person you should be writing the book about. He was an extraordinary young man. He made a path for himself. Gene Kilroy, Muhammad Ali's longtime business manager, said to me over the phone just days prior to my visit to Atlanta. Drew Brown III's home was breathtaking. It was the most beautiful home I'd ever visited. We entered the property via cast iron gates, griffins perched on each side of the entrance, a double B insignia prominently featured on each side of the dual swing driveway doors. Drew's multi-story home featured a gym, a movie theater, and a man-made lake in the backyard. Each room was handsomely furnished, adorned with antiques and artifacts from around the world. Regarding the decor, there were plenty of visual cues calling back to Drew's days in the Navy, but little to no evidence of his life around boxing. I'd be embarrassed to show this place off to you if my father had left this to me, if I hadn't earned it myself, Drew insisted, petting Bo, one of his 6 Great Danes, animals who were in every way as impressive as his home. In suggesting he had earned his fortune, Drew Brown III was not being disingenuous. When Bundini died in September of 1987, he left his son absolutely nothing in terms of money. Drew's father died penniless in a modest hotel room located in a crime-ridden section of Los Angeles. His mother, Rhoda Palestine, was no better with finances than her mercurial husband. Drew and his mother spent much of his childhood living in the Carver Housing Authority projects in Spanish Harlem. My host, despite all of his impressive material possessions, was hardly of blue blood lineage. His wealth had nothing to do with trust funds or celebrity privilege. My father's life ended in misery, like my mother's, because in the end, they didn't plan for the future. They lived in the now. If you gave my father money, he either gave it away or spent it. One of the reasons I'm successful is because I watched my parents struggle, Drew said to me as we made our way around the property. It was on the final leg of our tour that I found the opening to my story. As we made our way into Drew's private library, the photographs lining the bookshelves all but jumped into my hands. There were images of Drew and his father palling around with the likes of Sugar Ray Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Colin Powell, and even Liberace. Drew showed little energy when rehashing celebrity encounters. He showed even less interest in talking boxing. When describing the personalities of family members, however, Drew came to life. His verbal and physical enthusiasm noticeably changed. I'm not biracial, Todd, Drew corrected me. There's only one race, the human race. I'm bicultural, he insisted. The diversity found within the frozen images lining his library bookshelves was nothing short of spectacular. Each photograph contained visual representations of seemingly disparate worlds in harmony. Growing up, I never once thought of myself as less than, Drew assured me, providing a hard pause after making that declaration. My parents, if anything, taught me I was better. I had the black side and the Jewish side. I had the best of both worlds, Drew added, handing over one by one my cast of characters. To tell my dad's story, to really understand his life, you got to take it back to the beginning, Drew Brown III insisted, removing one last framed photograph from the top shelf. To really tell the story, you got to take it back to Sanford, Florida. So that's the opening to the book. In the beginning of my research journey that took me all over the world and put me in position to meet folks like George Foreman, former heavyweight champions like Larry Holmes, Tim Witherspoon, members of the Ali family. So that's my reading for tonight. That's my opening to the book. Thank you guys for having me.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
That was really incredible. I love the way you weave like the research into your narrative. That is difficult to do, and it was just so compelling.
I have to tell you, Christina, whenever I was at the airport, I'm waiting for this stranger to pick me up who I've never met, who's the son of one of the most famous boxing trainers in history. When he pulls up in the Rolls Royce, I said, this is the opening to my book. I knew that, I was off to a wild journey, and it was an amazing journey. I had Ali's second wife text me the other day randomly, and I'm like, I got to pinch myself. This is my life now. And it all began with that first day when Drew picked me up, took me to his home, and he gave me all of his dad's poems, his writings. He gave me scrapbook materials, his dad's jewelry. I got to really dig in and do some research that was beyond reading Sports Illustrated articles. I really got to dig into this man's life.
Well, and I think as someone who is a trained rhetorician, we kind of learned that the power in those artifacts. We love the text, we love reading the articles and so forth, but to actually hold a letter in your hand or a poem in your hand,
that's right,
that this person wrote, I mean, that you must feel so blessed.
It was amazing, Christina, because because I had access to his son, I was able to read personal letters from Bundini and his wife. I was able to read postcards that he sent his son when he was traveling the world with Ali. I had got to read postcards from Ali to Drew Brown III. It was just amazing, and I really got a sense of who the man was. I wanted to write about Bundini, the man, the father, the husband, the best friend to Muhammad Ali. I wanted to really give a full picture of who this guy was, who I think has been forgotten in not only boxing history, but this is Black History Month. Bundini was an icon in regard to Black pop culture. Aside from being with Sugar Ray and Ali, he was also in those Shaft movies. Richard Roundtree. He played Willie the gangster from Harlem. He was a bad guy in those movies.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was to look at this guy.
We have some great stories about that in the book too.
I want to watch.
I love the way you play with our expectations, or where we hear the Rolls Royce pulling up, and we're you kind of curve back to that where it's like we're thinking this is some sort of celebrity privilege. We're expecting that Muhammad Ali's trainer's son. Well, of course I'm gonna. But then I love the way you sort of spun that expectation back on itself.
Well, I wanted to put you in the Rolls Royce with me. I wanted you to feel what I was feeling, because when I see him pull up, I go, wow, this is going to be nice. He's going to have a beautiful house, and his dad left him all this money. But those of you who know boxing history know that Bundini, the end of his life was really tough. He struggled with alcoholism, and after Ali got sick with Parkinson's, the money stopped, and the end of his life was not that good. And his son had to sort of become self-made in some ways after his dad's career was over, and he did it through education. And his dad had joined the Navy when he was a 15-year-old in Sanford, Florida. And he had been kicked out of the Navy because they found out he wasn't as old as he said he was, and he had threatened one of his commanding officers who had made a racist comment. And so his dad went from being kicked out of the Navy, where he was essentially a steward, shining shoes, and his son goes on to become a Navy fighter pilot, decorated pilot. So, the life story was just full circle. It was about fathers and sons, and coming off the Lowe's Gym book that Christina mentioned, I was still stuck in that mode of writing about what it means to be a father and a son, a mentor, a coach, that kind of thing.
It's really wonderful stuff. I mean, I know that you're working on a book about hip hop and boxing right now, right?
Yeah, in some ways, it's almost like a sequel to Bundini in some ways, because many scholars have argued that Muhammad Ali and Bundini together, in coming up with those rhymes, laid the rhetorical template for hip hop.
Right.
This next book is called Beatboxing: How Hip Hop Changed the Fight Game, and it's everything that came after Ali, the ways in which hip hop changed the sport of boxing, and the ways in which boxing and figures like Ali and Mike Tyson changed hip hop. So we're writing about Tupac Shakur's relationship with Tyson, Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent. We're talking. I interviewed 30-some rappers, all my heroes from when I was a kid.
It's amazing.
A bunch of superstar boxers too. So I'm very excited. It comes out November 3rd this year. So
that's awesome. So we all have something to look forward to. And if you are interested in the book that Todd read from today, or his other book about Lowe's Gym, or his other book about the Rhetoric of Appalachia, which is fascinating to me, and that identity of Appalachians, you can find them in our bookshop store, and you can also find them everywhere else where everybody sells books. So thank you so much, Todd, for coming on and taking your time to tell us this wonderful storytelling tonight.
Wonderful.
That's why we come back every week for writers like you who not only entertain us, but inform us, and, to be honest, keep us sane during this pandemic, doing what we all love to do.
I appreciate the opportunity, and you're doing a great thing for Appalachia and for writers like myself. We're trying to get the word out. So thank you so much.
Thank you so very much.
All right.
So should we remind everybody before we let Todd go that we do have a call for papers?
Absolutely. I'm so excited to kind of get a little more behind the scenes, because I want to talk about Sonny Liston with Todd. Yes, we should talk about the call for papers.
So we do have a call for papers out there for the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia's conference that will be held at Ogilvy Park this September. So if you're interested in presenting at that conference, please go to our website, Writers Association of Northern Appalachia.org, and you can learn more about that. They're due on April 15th. And we're here.
It is also available on our Facebook page.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're already there.
Yes. Thank you again, Todd. It was really lovely talking to you and listening to your words. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll see you next week at 8 o'clock.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.